All right, guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio on this 30th day of April, Tuesday. Joining me now is the Doug Owen of blacklistednews.com. It's been a little bit since he's been on here. He's made a few changes to his very busy schedule, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, talk about what he's doing now that he is no longer hosting a nightly radio program. He's most certainly still staying very, very busy. So let's welcome on Doug Owen, blacklistednews.com. How are you, Doug?
I'm doing wonderful, Charlie. It's good to be with you, man. Thanks for having me on.
It's always a pleasure to have you on here, and I want to jump right into it a little bit in this first segment. There's a lot of people that I've gotten messages since you decided to no longer host your radio program as well as Oracle Broadcasting. You decided to devote time still in the same field, independent media, but you've decided to tack and go a different direction. And how's it going? Tell us what you're doing. People wondering what happened to Blacklisted News Radio or Oracle. Give us the whole story.
Well, what happened was that I ended up in a management position that I never really intended on being in when it comes to Oracle Broadcasting, but I was one of the architects that created it about 5 years ago, and it ran its course. It hit its plateau, and being somebody that looks at graphs and metrics, I realized how much energy, time, and effort it would take to make it a competitor when there's so many other alternative media outlets as well as video stations. There's a lot of other mediums, and so for me, it was just a matter of looking at it, changing with the times, and so it's just a progression. Now I'm just doing a dedicated podcast at blacklistedradio.com. I do it Saturday mornings live at 10 a.m. Central for the people that like the live aspect to it. We still do it live. It's live to tape, and a couple times a week I'm doing interviews. Today I did one with Wolf Richter of this great website called testosteronepit.com. And so what I've been doing is actually delving more into watching media. I don't know if you're aware, but the Milken Institute, the global conference, is happening right now, and this is a big deal in the market world. It's basically the equivalent of maybe a mini Bilderberg meeting that's happening. So, you think you're going to get a lot more time out of retiring from something that you do and you put a lot of time into, and you find that you can fill it right back up with other things. But I do feel that I'm able to get a lot more stuff done and really getting into more topics rather than just looking at them and touching upon them on a daily basis.
Listen, I don't know if anybody is, if anybody is stressed or upset because they no longer have Blacklisted News Radio to listen to. I understand more probably than most.
Sure.
Exactly what you're talking about. Now, I haven't been doing it as long as you did, but I'm going on a couple of years, and I'm going on over a year of 2 hours a night. And like you, this isn't what pays the bills. This is what I do because I love it, and because I think it's important. And I know you feel the same way. I mean, you are getting up and going to a job every day, and then everything else you do is because of your beliefs and what you think is important. And let's just make it real clear to everybody: blacklistednews.com is absolutely thriving. It's doing better than it's ever done, as per our last conversation. And in fact, I see now, and this is an absolute direct result to April 1st. I'm sure of it. It is updated more than it used to be. So it looks like you're taking some of your time and putting it back into the website, which is which is it. When I first started making YouTube videos, the first link I ever put on a YouTube video was linked back to Blacklisted News. So everybody just be real aware that Blacklisted News isn't going anywhere, and you're going to keep doing what you do and what you love.
Oh, absolutely, and it also gives me an outlet to distribute the podcast. I mean, the websites are there, and it's on YouTube now, and I'm putting all of them on YouTube, and that's because you actually pushed me into the YouTube world. I'm trying to catch up, and with your gracious videos, have brought a few hundred followers that have been watching the videos. But it's kind of funny. A next door neighbor of mine who listened to the show all the time waved me over. We were going to dinner, and he said, "Hey, man, did you realize that you can watch your latest podcasts on YouTube?" And I said, "Yeah, I put them on there." And he's like, "Well, why didn't you tell me, man? Why didn't you tell me?" And I'm like, I just, you think things are inferred or that people will find it, but it's good to know that if you look for it, it's real easy to find it on YouTube. And if people just Google it, you'll find all of the new episodes.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a great point. I mean, my original YouTube channel is, I think, right about 16,000 subscribers. Yet, so my commentary, my short little commentary videos, they'll get the whatever, pick it up 20, 40, 60,000 views on some of them. But the radio programs, I didn't post them up there until Gary, came on board, and he's uploading these things every night. He's like Chinese water torture. He does it regardless if he wants to or not. He uploads them. And it was really, really slow getting the numbers on the radio program. It'd start with 100. This is when I'm sitting here already with a pretty good sized subscriber base. It still there's a lot of people that didn't realize you could get Wide Awake News Radio on that or on our YouTube channel. So I know what you mean. You think, just because you had a strong following on Oracle, that it would automatically just jump over as soon as you opened up a Blacklisted News YouTube channel. But those things always take time. So I'm happy. I think I've only done one promotional video for you, but I'm certainly happy to do more if we can help. I'll be there for you.
Well, yeah, and I'll have you on the podcast, and I'll put it up on my channel, and you can put it on your channel, and
and in fact, Gary, geez, everybody's Gary tonight.
He's the man.
He's the man. I can't get Gary off my mind. That's troubling at best. Doug and I we've been talking for quite some time that we want to do a few podcasts now and then together, especially when things are so serious. Doug and I always have had the ability to still have fun. Whenever time you're on the program, we usually end up laughing and having a good time. Not that that is all that it's going to be about, but it's certainly, I think, an important aspect that is missed, especially in independent media. It's always dire. It's always end of the world. There's always conspiracy, and it's always the powers that be, which is all true and important. But you got to laugh once in a while, or you'll go nuts.
Well, there's a difference between being aware and being freaked out, and being aware that there's no point in really being all that freaked out. There's only so many things that you can do to prepare yourself, and so you have to take the information and make a conscious decision as to what you want to do with that information. And for me, I think a lot of it was just having it hit me every day and just getting to that burnout point where you're just tired of the content, and you're no longer enjoying putting it out there, and you're not really getting to maybe some other sub stories they're happening that you want to investigate, you want to dig deeper into. So I think that it's really important to take everything in proper proportions, considering, because
do you think we're going to see a shakeout? I mean, you and I both know that in independent media, that they come and go, man. It's unbelievable how many programs are started and then fall by the wayside. I mean, as far as plateauing the number, you talk about plateauing, the number of new programs seems to be, this is just peripheral observation, but it seems to be less folks are coming on board. I know Jeff Rentz, he's very, very particular now about who he'll let come onto his airwaves because of that fact that it was so watered down for a long time. Do you see there'll be a shaking out, or do you think we're just going to see this form of media continue to explode until everybody yourself, myself, others that we tune in and listen to. Well, I'll pick that question up on the backside of this break. I ran too long there. We'll be back with Doug Owen, founder of blacklistednews.com, and more Wide Awake News Radio in just a minute. Hang tight. All right, guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath, joined by Doug Owen of blacklistednews.com, talking a little bit about independent media and the direction it's going. And honestly, guys, that's not what I was going to talk about tonight. And before the program's over, Doug, I want to talk a little bit about internet sales tax, that all the non-taxing GOP is all in favor.
What about the Yeti, though? Let's get to some real stuff. There's Yetis around here, apparently. I've heard.
There's Yetis around here, and I brought this up on the program the other night, and I took hell for it. A few emails came in and say, "What are you talking about this crap for?" And I've never dedicated a program to it. Although I live in Montana, and and in fact, the Finding Bigfoot crew was up here. Just finished shooting an episode here, and I think their season's done for this year, so it must come out next year. And in fact, I had a niece that ended up going on a dinner date with Bobo of Finding Bigfoot fame. But
really,
yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, I only bring it up because I think it's a metaphor for the fact that the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about real issues. They'll dig, under rocks all over the place looking for stories like that. But when it comes to actually facing criminality and naming names, not so interested in doing that. Yeah,
they have no desire, which led to the decline of credibility, at least in the mind of the American people. It's under 50% now. Have faith that they're getting the truth in mainstream media, which led to the explosion of independent media, which led to a whole bunch of people after folks like yourself, they're you and others that had started half a decade ago and longer in some cases, who had kind of pioneered the way. I think a lot of people saw that there was a lot of people out there that saw the opportunity to draw in an audience, be it on internet radio or YouTube or whatever, or a combination of both, and then you have a giant payday coming, and that has brought a lot of people into this genre, and a lot of people have been really disappointed.
Well, I imagine if you think that you're going to get a big payday out of it, and here's the thing: the only way that you get paid is if you convince thousands of people to buy a product or to listen to you and to trust you. And so I think the problem is that most people that want to do this lack credibility from the get-go, and then it's only amplified by their inability to find anything of value to discuss. And
original.
So you have to find people that you're going to exploit in some form or fashion, or that and most people are well intentioned. I'm not saying that everybody gets into doing whatever it is, and it's not just this medium. It could be building websites. It could be left wing blogging, whatever it may be. It's hard to get credibility, especially on the internet, considering how many other people are out there yelling and saying things. And so a lot of people just get to the point where they don't see any economic incentive, and that was what was really driving them. So those people, they come and go quite quickly. You see a lot of them.
Yeah, we do, and even if they wanted to, in most cases, the individuals you're talking about, they don't have their own drive. They don't have their own fire behind what they're saying. They might pick up on what somebody else is saying and run with it and make it their own for a minute or two. But when they realize that it isn't just about a flashy presentation one or two times, and it's something that you better be dedicated to and believe in, because if you don't, you're going to get burnt out uber quick, right? You're not going to see this big financial reward. If that's what you're looking for, you should pick another crowd, because this crowd isn't certainly what would be considered the folks that are sitting on high, collecting all the all the money from government in bailouts and that kind of thing. These are the folks that are average people in this country who are in tough economic times. So if you're coming into this genre looking for a payday, you've made a choice. I want to say this. Somebody in chat room just said, Yetis are a real issue. No, that's not what Doug was saying at all. What he was saying is that mainstream media will go crazy over hints of stories like that, because it's the shock media. It's the blood goes first type of media. They will put anything and everything other than the true events or stories of the day that impact your life and your future. These are the stories that are ignored. He wasn't saying that unless I don't think you were. It isn't a real story, is it?
Say that again. What's not a real story?
Somebody in the chat room wrote, they heard us say, that the main. You said something along the lines of the mainstream media isn't covering real stories. They're more interested in Yeti or looking for stories like that, sensational stories.
Sure. Well, it's just easy. It's easy and it's fun and it's lighthearted, and people, they don't want to see, there's a really horrible abortion story about this guy. I'm not going to get into it because it's horrific, but there's the trial going on right now, and the testimony is just jaw-dropping. And even the right-wing well, here, the break's coming, but they don't even want to touch that stuff because it's uncomfortable. And so stories like the Yeti are very comfortable.
Yeah, good point, Doug Owen. We'll be back with Doug Owen, founder of BlacklistedNews.com and more Wide Awake News Radio. Hang tight. Wide Awake News Radio, Doug Owen of Blacklisted News Radio, or BlacklistedNews.com, rather. Blacklisted News Radio is your podcast now. That's the website for that, isn't it?
Yeah, BlacklistedRadio.com. Either one, there's links all over the place.
You're an easy guy to find. You know what? We were talking about the latest Windows product during the break, and I've completely lost track of where we were at the back end.
We were talking about the Yeti and what the non-story that it was, and then you wanted to talk about the internet tax, and I think that's a good place to talk. Looking for money in this parasitic economy.
Well, they're expecting potentially over $20 billion a year in revenue on this internet tax. And give me your thoughts on it. I find it shocking that these people that were signing pledges never to raise taxes are all on board. And of course, they're going to name it something like the even playing field internet law.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say that this could potentially, depending on how it's legislated and how it's written, it could be a global tax. People talk about the global taxation system. This is a national taxation system because really at every turn, people are purchasing not just you and I individuals, but also wholesalers and companies and retailers are buying stuff on the internet. The company you work for buys stuff on the internet. So this is a national tax. So if you look at the state of Texas, we already pay a sales tax, and they're going to continue to get their 8% sales tax, and you're going to now have another tax. So here where I live, we are supposed to claim that, or give the government the money for what we purchase online out of state. If you pay in-state, or if you use Amazon like I do, they already assess those taxes for you. Convenient, but kind of tyrannical. But so this is a national sales tax. And I think that, people talk about the revenue and how great this is. It just shows you that there's no real infrastructure or economy that is being built upon. The only solutions are more things. People don't like to use the word, but this is austerity. And it's taking from all of us to put forth more money into this bankrupt plan. And that is, central government mismanagement for the military-industrial complex and other, big, global and national contractors that reap in tons, billions, trillions of dollars off of this welfare, this corporate welfare slush fund. And that's what it'll be used towards. And, pushing more and more regulations onto the internet. They're going to use a lot of this money to help ISPs end up being more of a big brother and giving more and more of that information. So there are also with this tax, there's also going to be the tax incentives and the people that are not going to be taxed, or corporations rather, that give up personal information. So it's so much more than just a simple solution to our economic problems. It raises a lot of issues.
A huge amount of issues. And first of all, this billion, they're estimating, 24 billion a year. It could be more, it could be a lot less. Who knows? But the premise that you laid out is one I agree with. That you're already, if you're in a state, in most cases, in my state, there is no sales tax. So, but in your example of Texas, you're already paying tax. But if I buy something or if you sell something to a state that has a sales tax, it is going to be incumbent upon blacklistednews.com or whatever your retail site is to be a tax collector for that state. If I'm living,
Sure.
in Idaho or Wyoming, you're going to have to collect that tax. And the notion, the whole premise is they even named this thing Marketplace Fairness Act. It sounds all gentle and cozy and warm. And they're saying that, well, brick and mortar businesses don't, they shouldn't have to compete with this online marketplace, but it's a bogus argument from the start. The brick and mortar institution, be it a whatever, depot, they have the benefit of the infrastructure in that state, in that shopping center, the roads and all the other things that are supposed to be achieved by taxation. They have that. Jim Bob on the internet, he doesn't use any of that state's infrastructure. So why on earth should he be paying, a tax in the state that he lives in plus a tax to another state? It isn't a fair market fairness act. It's a way to, like you said, to graft, to skim, to take a little bit more out of the pockets of the people of this country, because our economy. Look, if we were having tax receipts coming in that were through the roof, and we were having expanding economy, and we were having jobs that were good paying jobs and a sustainable economic future, come on, this wouldn't even be an issue. But these kind of things are going to start being, like you said, the expansion of internet legislation is going to become more and more obtrusive because of the fact that they need to take all they can. It's rob what they can now before it's all gone.
Well, yeah, and then selectively exempt and to use that taxation power to regulate the markets and to push non-friendly corporations that are doing business with other people that don't want to be part of this grander scheme. And I think that they're losing a lot of ground because people inherently are trying to get away from paying these taxes. I mean, you look at cigarettes. People will drive across state. They'll go to Indian reservations, anything just to get a pack of cigarettes a little bit cheaper. But yeah, the real hypocrisy here is that the things that are really destroying the mom and pop stores are not the internet. It's not retailers on the internet. If anything, that is empowering them in many cases. But the whole idea, the whole notion that government has to be subservient to one group of businesses over the other is I think that's what's on highlight, that government uses this power, taxation, to regulate the free market, if there is such a creature, and I don't believe that there really is. We just have crony capitalism here. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And the internet, just as it is for exchange of ideas and information and a gathering place of different levels of society, where it's not interrupted and it is not coerced into one direction or another. And even though that isn't even organic to that extent, that it's a meeting place that isn't going to monitor and track everything that you do. But the notion that this free exchange of ideas is here, the notion that this truly free marketplace is here, is a threat, right, to the power structure, the power system that we have in place now. And they need taxation. They need this ability to regulate so they can pick who wins and who loses. And it's why we see stories coming out now about the Department of Justice being able to levy fines or put other burdens on internet providers that don't play ball with giving across information that the DOJ or government or quasi-government agencies are looking for. So we see the internet in whole being attacked from just about every angle, trying to not only compromise the freedom that is here now, but control the full use, be it on an intellectual level or a economic level.
Well, just think about this. Under the Obama regime, the Barack Obama campaign has spent more money on the Department of Homeland Security than they did during the New Deal. Okay, so the New Deal, our New Deal, is a police state, Charlie.
That's exactly right. That's a good point.
That's what everybody's investing in. That's where, if you look at all of the trends, it's towards surveillance, drone technology, and each and every time there is a horrific event that is only amplified and magnified to ad nauseum proportions by the mainstream media, do we see these companies, the same people that have been profiting since Vietnam and prior, that really do make out on this. So there's a lot of money. It's just in sectors that are completely public, and there's a lot of public-private partnerships that are going on in that sector as well. So that's the economy that they're building.
Yeah, but I mean, to what end? I mean, you can have this bill. I mean, in your opinion, to what end is this continued expansion of a security state?
Somewhere between here and North Korea.
Well, okay. So you have a nation.
I've used this North Korean analogy already today, but it's a good analogy. You look at North Korea; they spend all of their money building missiles and fighting wars, and they've been militarizing themselves for 50 years. And so, you look at the country; they're not eating, but they have a lot of military weaponry.
Yeah, they got a force to be considered or reckoned with, if not reckoned with, considered for sure. We'll be back with Doug Owen, Blacklisted News, final segment, Wide Awake News Radio. Coming up, I want to talk a little bit about the GAO now investigating ammo on this same topic. We'll be back in just a minute. Hang tight. Doug Owen, blacklistednews.com is our guest. Final segment on this 30th day, last day of April, Tuesday. And I was commenting to Doug during the break that it's very obvious to me that his site is probably a benefactor of the changes you've made because of the. I mean, you are updating this thing several times a day, and there's always something new there. I would typically go to your site I'd go to mine in the morning, I go to yours in the morning, and see what's going on. You're one of the places I go to for information, and would probably be updated a couple times a day. And now it seems like every single time I go there, you have a new story flung up there. So for no other reason other than it's a great source for myself for information, I'm glad you've made this change. All right, I want to keep it kind of on this same topic we were talking about in the last break, this expansion of the security industrial complex and the industry, which is going to be spy on thy neighbor. Not unlike over 50% of the population in some form or another. In the East German Stasi police state worked for the state. In a lot of cases, it was surveilling the folks who didn't, or in some cases, surveilling the folks who did. So we're heading into that kind of an economy. But I find it interesting that the stories coming out now, even in established media, of the massive amounts of ammunition that the DHS is purchasing. You made the point that Obama spent more money on DHS than was spent in the New Deal. This is our New Deal. What do you think of the GAO, the General Accounting Office, launching an investigation? Is it a few congressmen and maybe senators who've asked the question to the point where they're finally stepping up to do something about it? Or do you think there's real alarm inside the General Accounting Office?
Oh, I definitely think it's political pressure. You have some mainstream coverage of it. People like Sarah Palin. She was Facebooking that she was wondering why the government's buying so many bullets and so much armament, and why we have little towns across the nation with tanks and full SWAT teams. What's the justification here? The over response or the over appropriation of weaponry and bullets has raised some eyebrows. The Government Accountability Office is doing this because there was a petition, and it drew, I think, the 75,000 now needed to get looked at by the government. So I think that was the move. I might be wrong on that, but that was the gist that I got, that there was just that much overwhelming pressure. And of course, the fact that the mainstream media has had to respond, the government has had to respond to quote unquote conspiracy theories about the bullets that that I think that they want a response because there's that many people. It's gone viral. So the real question is, why do they need so many bullets? Janet Napolitano, she says they need so many bullets because when you buy in bulk, you get better deals. And this is just about saving taxpayer dollars, Charlie McGrath. Now, you can buy that rationale. I don't buy that rationale. But if you look at the young man, the Sarnov brother that they they ran down into that boat, and apparently he shot himself in his neck, but then he didn't, and then he was talking. That whole story's changed so many times. It deserves days and days of analysis. But they shot that boat to pieces. So for one guy, 200, 300, 400, 500 bullets, who knows? And friendly fire killed that MIT police officer. So they've exchanged over two guys, I don't know, maybe 10,000 bullets. That's a conservative estimate. They were just shooting Boston to pieces. So if you look at that as the kind of math that they use, for each person, Charlie, you need 10,000 bullets. So I think that they're not making the full 1.6 billion round purchase. They're truncating that to $260 million because allegedly they've been sequestered. So there you go.
Well, they're going to be running low. They're going to have to, actually maybe get a little closer and not go so trigger happy.
But all kidding aside, every time I hear about some police officer shooting somebody, it's an unarmed guy, and they used 30 rounds.
Yeah, 7 magazines, 7 9mm magazines, full of ammo into the guy.
So if you actually had the Government Accountability Office using those kind of disproportionate statistics, they need a lot more.
Yeah. Well, I see the Ammo Act, and this is would prevent agencies from buying more ammunition if stockpiles are greater than what they've previously used in the past. Who knows if this will go anywhere or not? But
nullification is becoming highly popular. States are trying to maintain relevance by throwing off Obamacare, throwing off any of the violations that they plan to execute against the Second Amendment in the White House. So you have states on every level, even states like Arizona. I mean, this is pretty wild stuff, but they're actually looking at gold as legal currency. Those kind of things 5 or 6 years ago would have if I would have told people, the listening audience that I had then, that was what was going to happen within 5 years, people would laugh. They'd be like, "What? Are you kidding me?" But that is where we're at. I mean, reality is much stranger than fiction.
No doubt. And, you talk about just a few years ago, and I completely agree with that statement, that if you would have come out and said half the things that are talked about on a daily basis on this program, but even, some in mainstream media, if you'd have said, can you imagine sitting here September of 2008 and saying that, look, America, I know the big story of the day is we got to give all this power and money to these banks because the financial system is going to collapse. But, take my word for it, in less than 5 years, we are going to have a Department of Homeland Security buying billions of rounds of ammunition. We're going to have talk of legislation to announce and implement up to 30,000 drones flying around the country. We're going to have something like Obamacare come in that is going to mandate that you have to buy something. A private individual has to buy a product from a private company in order just for the right to suck wind in this country. If you just said half the things, many things I'm forgetting about.
Sure. It's a long list.
It's a huge list. People would have thought.
Well, actually, in 2007, I was screaming from the rooftops. Look, they are blowing up the housing market. It's unsustainable, to the T. And what we saw play out in 2008 was a long time in the making. And I saw the run up. I narrated the run up when George W. Bush changed the laws to make it almost impossible for people to bankrupt. And I was one of those town criers, the Liberty crier, that can now say, well, in retrospect, see, if you listen to my podcast back then, I was right. And there was a lot of people that were right, but now today, those realities I think have touched most people, and now it's really about what are you going to do as an individual and as an activist to try to change things for the better. So that's the hard reality. It's not so much, warning people about the new world order or the banking syndicate taking over. Now it's looking at that in the rear view and trying to make something of it. So that's, in my personal life, I've felt that change. And I think that globally, we're seeing that change. And that is, for lack of a better term, I know it's cliche, that is the New World Order, making that turn.
That's interesting, although I might take you up on or have a disagreement with the rear view mirror aspect of it, and maybe I'm just misunderstanding that. But
I the New World Order, it's used by so many people. It becomes cliche,
sure.
but it's the
no. I'm talking about the warning aspect. Power. I'm talking about you're talking in 2005 when Bush made it almost impossible to file bankruptcy. You can go back to folks saying it, in '99 when Glass-Steagall was destroyed. Sure. There is people now that are saying, you were one of them, and I am one of them, that are saying the next cliff that we're going to go off is going to be another economic crisis, but this one's going to be far, far worse. It's going to be a sovereign debt crisis, and it's going to change everything. It's going to change the entire game. Now, as we spoke before, do you throw yourself off into a volcano because this is coming, or did you, like you said, you understand that this is how things work? You can predict what's coming, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure it out. So, be proactive and try to figure out how you can protect yourself and family in coming crisis.
Here's a good look at it. There's this scientist that noticed these dogs that would run the subways in Russia after the fall, and they would ride the trains because basically they can just get on the trains. But he actually tracked these guys, and they had learned because of the epicenter that had been created around St. Petersburg, that after the economic crisis, their crash, that they would have to go to the center of town. So long story short, these wolves and dogs actually commuted to beg in the city. And the whole takeaway is that they figured out how to use the system and how to survive in it, even though everything they had known had changed. And now so much so that you have literally dogs riding the subway to beg, and then and actually commuting to suburbia at night. It's a real story.
That's an awesome story. I believe you. It's an awesome story. Commuting dogs living through an economic apocalypse. That should be a book or a movie.
I'm sure. Well, it's a great article. I think it came in the New Yorker, so it's not a lowbrow discussion. But the takeaway is that no matter what, there is a way to survive. It's just a matter of doing it.
I agree, Doug. I agree that there's always a way to survive, and it's important to understand what's coming. Doug Owen, blacklistednews.com. Doug, when can I hear your podcast live?
Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time at blacklistedradio.com. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you, Doug Owen. I appreciate it. I look forward to getting you back on and joining you on some of your work in the future. Congratulations on the move, and great job on the website. Thanks for being our guest. All right, guys, stay tuned for Jeff Rins because he's coming up next. We will be back same time tomorrow, 5 o'clock West, 8 o'clock East. Have a good night. Peace.